Hey everyone. Today I've been thinking a lot about how important it is to mental health to have a consistent sense of self, which I didn't intend to rhyme. Today I wanted to dive a little bit into identity development. It's really important to know who we are. And a good way to start this before we get into the very big picture idea of who you are, I think a good way to start is to know first off who you're not. There's a few things that you're not, and that's what we'll go over today. So you are not the same person in every situation. This is really an unfair expectation to have of yourself, but it's something I see quite a lot. You're not going to be the same in every situation because all situations are going to be different. The context will be different. Your reaction will be different. All the details will change. And so we really shouldn't expect ourselves to be the same person in every situation. You may have gotten really poor sleep the night before, and that might cause you to be a little more impatient, a little grouchier. Maybe you've been under a lot of stress and that's impacting your mood and making you react a little differently than you typically would. There's a lot of things that can impact our disposition at any given time. And so expecting yourself to be the same person, to show up in the same way every time, it's kind of a big expectation. And in fact, one of the things you sort of realize as you develop your sense of identity and you move throughout this world is that there are going to be thousands of you out there. There's going to be thousands of different interpretations of who you are that rest and exist in each person's mind that's interacted with you. And that's a lot of responsibility. Yes, that's kind of overwhelming to think about at times. But it also means that there is so many versions of you that you don't need to get too bound to one and feel that everything rests on a single presentation of who you are. You can be different and that's okay. You just want to have some core things that are consistent throughout, and that's part of identity development. Another thing you're not in control of is you are not in full control of your thoughts. I know many of us may have grown up in environments or cultures and been taught that we are in control of our thoughts and that we are accountable to our thoughts. And I can understand why some people might believe this, but it's not really a great approach to thoughts. Thoughts can spring from anywhere. There's really not a ton of good evidence, none actually, that I've seen, that all thoughts have to come from within the individual and have to be produced by the individual. Thoughts can spring from all sorts of places. And so we shouldn't feel complete ownership over our thoughts. Sometimes you may notice that a thought pops up and it doesn't feel like you. And maybe it came from a parent. Maybe it's a critical thought from when you were growing up. Maybe it's something a peer said years ago. We don't always have to take ownership over our thoughts. You can just take some distance. Actually, it's important to develop that skill to take some distance and observe the thoughts and not feel that you're bound to every one of them or that they are all a reflection of you. When you're driving down the road and you get the call of the void to veer off and get yourself in trouble, I mean, that's an unsafe thought. You probably don't want to do that genuinely. That would be something you would never engage in, but it's a thought that pops in. It's actually a thought many of us experience. So sometimes the human brain just produces these things, or they can spring from without outside the brain. They can come from the mind, they can come from exchange with another person. We just shouldn't assume that all of our thoughts are ours to take ownership and accountability for. And in the same vein, you can't be judged by your thoughts. Your thoughts are internal, they're covert, they can't be seen by anyone else, at least with the current bounds of technology. I would hope they never could be. You are not forced to share those with anyone. Now, if you do share a thought and that leads to some consequences, then you were judged by the behavior of sharing that thought. So you will be judged by your actions, but you can't be judged by your thoughts. So just sit, take a minute, observe the thought, sit with it for a moment, consider maybe where it came from, and then let it go. You do not need to hold on to all of those thoughts. And in fact, if you do internalize every single thought that pops into your head, that can lead you down some bad paths and really amplify the stress that you feel or the criticisms of yourself, the negative self talk. Those of us that have issues with obsession, sometimes if we cling on to thoughts, we reproduce them. So letting them go can be a really important skill. You are not your thoughts, and you can't be judged by them if you choose not to share them. Another thing I wanted to talk about is that you are not devoid of free will. Now, I know the free will discussion comes up quite a lot, and from biologists to neurologists, psychiatry, philosophy. It's been answered from a lot of different approaches. I just don't think it's very productive to kind of give up ownership over your life. Ironically, I know I just said you don't need to own your thoughts, but you should try to take some ownership over your behavior. And if you want to change something, if you think there's something within yourself you want to be different, then go do that. Really, at the end of the day, the most important thing when it comes to identity is a sense of continuity. There just needs to be a general thread of continuity of self over time so that you don't wake up one day and feel like you're an entirely different person, or you don't interact completely and consistently with everyone and feel like there's no thread that follows you through your life that you can rely on and know who you are. When it comes to developing an identity, it's important. It's a process that is intentional. So it shouldn't be something that happens accidentally. You should have some degree of influence on the process. You do want to wake up in 20 years, be proud of who you are, not surprised by who you are. So I will talk about this a little bit more in future videos, but I just wanted to make this one quickly to say that it can be helpful to really put the boundaries about what you're not and understand that and move forward to develop who you are. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this video.